because it's disrespectful to myself and to others. I was threatened to be kicked out of a treatment center, a white treatment center, because I'm calling myself what is on my status card, what the government identifies me as.
It's not right.
What do you identify yourself as? That's what's important. That's what's important. Yes.
I'm a human being. I'm Shuswap, I'm Squamish, I'm a man, I'm Canadian, and people that, bash this country and say that all this stuff is wrong. Well, you know what? I don't care about the government or all the crap that's happened to me. I care about the good times and the shit that my people have taught me, that my grandma taught me, that my mom has taught me. I grew up in BC. My grandpa, during the summer, around this time, we'd either be picking berries or we'd be fishing for salmon, dip netting. And we'd be canning and picking berries and living off the land like we were taught. That's what I love about this country. That's what I love about this land, that I've got to experience that. I've gotten to experience something that's dying, because we don't live off the land anymore like we used to. We don't. We're losing ourselves because of this residential schools and this hate. You know what it was like for me growing up, besides all the abuse and the sexual abuse and the trauma that I went through? I went through some pretty cool times. I lived on the coast of Sechelt. I lived in Roberts Creek, and I got to go swim in the ocean. That's what I love about this country and this land. That's what my grandma taught me to love. That's what she taught me to protect, is the land. The land that protects me, that gives me life, that gives me what I need to live. My grandma taught me that women are stronger than men. Women are where we turn to. Women are where we get the strength from. This system is so ass backwards. We should be turning to our women. We should be listening to them. I haven't been doing that because I've been so caught up in my addiction and lost trying to find whoever it is I am, that I lost that ideal, but I'm learning to get it back. I'm gonna read something to you that I was looking up. Globe and Mail, November 22nd, 2015. Indigenous women in Canada are roughly 7 times more likely than non-Indigenous women to die at the hands of serial killers, according to Globe and Mail analysis that found at least 18 Aboriginal females are victims of convicted serial killers since 1980. The majority of those women were slain near or in or near cities, and the most were killed by non-Indigenous men. The cases were persecuted British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, with the cities of Vancouver, Prince George, Saskatchewan. 8 serial killers who were convicted in a total of 25 homicides were responsible for the women's deaths. I'm gonna skip a little farther ahead and give you the actual what's going on. About 1/5 of Canada's known female serial homicide victims since 1980 were Indigenous. According to Globe and Mail analysis of the convictions of American researchers and international database, just 4% of overall Canadian female population is Indigenous. 4% of the female population is Indigenous. The newspaper is also compiling and vetting its own database of homicide and long-term missing persons cases involve Indigenous women, building on data collected by the Native Women's Association of Canada and Ottawa-based researcher Marion Pierce through this ongoing work, the Globe has determined that at least 18 Indigenous women were slain by convicted serial killers since 1980. If you broaden that, if you look at all the serial killers, all of the murdered and missing Indigenous bodies that have been found, it adds up to 77. 77 murdered, missing, and Indigenous women. And a majority of them were sex workers and living on the streets and drug addicts. And they're people that we kind of kicked aside and we forgot about because of the lifestyle that they were choosing. But you know what? They chose that lifestyle because of the hurt that we experienced from these schools. Because of the hurt that these schools have caused. These women have decided to go live that lifestyle. I've talked to some of them. I've met some. I've asked them questions about what it's like. Because we choose to forget them. We choose to forget that they're women and that they have the capability of giving life and that some of them have given life. So what if they choose that for a line of work? They're still women. They're still people. We gotta stop kicking them aside. Just like we kick the homeless aside. Just like we kick everyone else aside and forget that we're human. There's currently a suggestion to close all massage parlors. Many of our stolen sisters were more than likely targeted on street-level parlors, provide a safe space as well as licensing, provides education and a record of who is where. These things prevent service providers from being targeted. There are people, mothers, sisters, daughters. The move to close massage parlors will put up to 1,000 more providers at risk for any number of dangers, and the current law to prevent them from working together risks the further forcing them to meet people at their homes or back on the street. Please reconsider this motion. Not only does this risk providers' lives, but of their families, as many are single mothers. Single Indigenous mothers who are doing this to take care of their family. And you guys want to take away their safety? What's wrong with you? They're women. And we need to stick up for them. All of them. Not just the ones that we choose to or we feel comfortable, all of them, because they all matter. We all matter. You all matter to me. That's what my grandma taught me. When I grew up, we didn't turn anyone away that came to our home. Our home was the detox of the reserve, and it was terrible growing up watching some of the stuff that I had seen because of what the schools and addiction had done to my people. It's funny how we let so much slide. I found out from one of my aunts that my aunt Barb Duncan, the oldest of my family, she was denied her claim to residential school because they told her she was lying. They told her that she couldn't have gone through stuff that horrendous. Could you imagine reliving all of that, having to write everything out, everything that happened to you, everything that you could possibly remember, and then be told by the government that you're a liar? We need to look at all of these claims, and we need to, as the people, look at these claims, not just the government, not just Parliament, not just them. We need to look at them and see what's really happened. We need to open up these cases again because it's not fair to the ones that were denied their story. I'm talking for them because those women taught me how to love before I got caught up in my addiction and hate. Before I pushed everyone away and I went to jail and got caught up in my addiction and got lost in these streets. We need to change how we deal with addiction and how we deal with our people that live on the streets, especially indigenous people, because you step over us all the time. Like we're nothing. Like we don't exist. A lot of them are just running from trauma, and I know this because I've lived on the streets here. I've lived in the Spadey, I lived at Alpha House, I lived at the DI. I know what it's like. And I've sat with them and I've listened to their pain when they're intoxicated and they shared their stories with me. There's so much pain in this world, and all I want to do is change how we deal with it. It's not fair how we deal with it, because I was telling you earlier how I went to 5 different treatment centers. All those treatment centers, they only dealt with my addiction. Whenever I'd bring up my father's death or my sexual abuse, they would say, we need to stop right now because I'm not a trauma counselor, I'm an addictions counselor. All of the treatment centers, even the native one that I went to, I was told that I couldn't talk about the sexual abuse that I had went through. And I was ready to talk about it. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know what it's like to relive that crap? To be willing to talk about it with someone and then be told that we can't talk about that, we can only talk about your addiction. Our systems need to change. We need to create better healthcare systems that work with mental health care and addiction, and we got to stop forcing the police to deal with our homeless and actually find trauma-based social services that will help them. Because that's what it is, it's trauma that we're ignoring. Everybody goes through trauma. Black, white, indigenous, Spanish. When I lived on the streets in Calgary, I had this African homeless friend of mine. I can't even say his name, but he told me about what it was like growing up over there, and it was horrendous. I couldn't imagine going through some of that. And I'm like, man, I'm grateful you made it here. Because we both went through some trauma. I'm grateful to be Canadian. I'm grateful to be from this land. I'm not grateful for the government. I'm grateful for the people that have experienced what I've experienced. I'm grateful for you that have shared my pain. So maybe we can make a change. I don't want you to take my stories as just taking my pain. I want you to take them and learn from them and change. Build these recovery systems, build these mental health care systems. Stop forcing the cops to deal with us, because they're getting sick of our shit too. And I don't blame the cops, because I've been through one of those, I can't remember the name of it, but the Moonlight Tour. Here in Edmonton, actually here in Edmonton, at West Ed. I was 21 years old. I remember leaving Sherlock's. This was like 2009. I remember leaving Sherlock's, and I remember walking towards the bus, and then it was it. And then I came to out in between the Yellowhead and St. Albert, and all I had was a sweater on, a t-shirt, and some jeans, and it was minus 35. I had bruises all over my body, I had a lump over my head, and I didn't know what the hell happened to me. I didn't find out about this stuff until I went to jail a couple years ago, and I had a couple other Aboriginal friends talk about similar situations. My bro Eddie, he told me that happened to him when he was, I think, 16 years old. That happens here in Alberta. It doesn't just happen in Saskatchewan, that happens in Canada. And it has to stop, and I'm not gonna let people silence us anymore. I wanna be heard, and I'm not afraid. It's gotta change. We need to stop treating our addicts and our criminals as that and look at them as wounded people and create programs that'll help them better themselves, not just throw them in jail and forget about them because you just become a better criminal. That's what happened to me. My first time in jail, I went to jail at 18. I got better at stealing. I came to this country, back to this country because I was in the States. I come here and in the jail system here, it's different. It's so Aboriginally focused. Why is it so Aboriginally focused? When our population, when the Indigenous population is so small in Canada that we have such large amount of our population in jails. We need to start treating these people as wounded people and get to the root of the problem. And quit treating them like they're a problem. Help them with their problems, because that's what a decent human being should do. That's what Canadians should do. Government tried to kill this Indian, but he didn't. I'm still standing and I'm not afraid anymore, and I'm telling you the truth because it needs to be heard. Thank you.